Good morning.
Hey.
Welcome. We're glad that you've joined us today for our recording of episode 228 of the family meeting. We are looking forward to next week.
Yeah.
And you've got to live your life a little bit ahead of the calendar to make any kind of plans and to make things special. And next week is Valentine's Day.
Spoiler alert for all you guys out there, you still have time.
Yes. My husband has planned something amazing. I don't even know what it is. He just told me to block 2 days off my calendar. And
Actually, 3 days.
3 days, that's true. Wednesday to Friday is blocked off my calendar. I have no idea why or what's happening, but it's blocked off. So I'm kind of excited. Like, there's an anticipation of the surprise.
She can tell you all about it in 2 weeks.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure that you are planning something for other people. And then Thomas also has some plans for not just me, but also for his daughters.
Yep.
How to make their Valentine's Day special.
So, looking forward to it. Anytime we can get away and celebrate our love, I'm all about it.
Yeah. But you also have something nice for the girls who are getting left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are excited, though, to record, and we're ready to get into it. You ready?
I am ready. Yes.
Okay. You start us off, babe.
All right. Episode 228. Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas. And this is my wife, Lysandra. Wah, wah, wah.
Lame. Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 228 of the Family Meeting Podcast. We're glad that you are with us today. On today's episode, we've got, I think, what will be a great episode for you. We are going to discuss parenting regrets.
Yeah, this episode is heavily influenced by our listeners, and we're going to be hearing from some of you, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to share our biggest parenting regret as well. We had some of our listeners reach out, and then also our family meeting community, which I love. I love our family meeting community. It is awesome. It's a Facebook group, and you're welcome to join at any time. On there, I just posted simply like, what's your biggest parenting regret? And it was so beautiful because many people were transparent, vulnerable, authentic. They shared their biggest parenting regret. And then some of the other parents on there like came alongside and was like, we're like, don't give up hope. Like, it's going to be okay. It was really beautiful.
Very supportive, very encouraging, which is what we want the group to be. We have fun in the group. We post memes and other things, but it's nice to see the prayer requests shared and the encouragement that they give in moments like that.
It's really cool.
Before we jump into today's episode, though, got a couple of exciting things coming up. One of them is just a couple of weeks away here, and that is Marriage Retreat in Pigeon Forge.
Wow. It's crazy how quickly time flies because, when we planned this and we put it on the schedule, it was so far away, and now it's just around the corner, and I'm excited.
So February 20th through 22nd, that's a Thursday night to a Saturday with Mark Harvey and Barnhart Baptist. So looking forward to that time together. And it's such a great area to visit. So if you've not been to the Pigeon Forge area, you really have got to check it out no matter what time of year you go. It's great. There's lots of stuff to do, whether you like indoor stuff, outdoor stuff, sightseeing, tourist type stuff. There's great restaurants, food, all the stuff. It's just a fun area to go to.
Yeah. And so if you follow us on social media, then you will get to see everything because when we go to any place, we take pictures everywhere. It's really for our own memories and journaling. And so if we ever go back, we know where to go. But that'll kind of give you an idea of what it's like. And hopefully someday you can take your spouse and go visit.
Yeah, reach out and follow us on there and connect with us personally, not just on our family meeting social media, but we open up our lives to everybody who wants to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
So you can see firsthand some of the things, get some ideas for yourself. So we've got that coming up in just a couple of weeks, February 20th to 22nd. We're ready to announce the relationship refresh for 2025.
What?
So we want you to mark this on your calendar. It is a great time to visit Florida, sunshine, hit the beach, and work on your marriage relationship. It was a lot of fun to have Drew and Chloe from Iowa/Illinois, that right on that border there, come down last year and be a part of it.
Yes.
And so we want to encourage you to come and be a part of it. That'll be July 25th and 26th. That's a Friday night and a Saturday morning. And we're just going to have a great time together right here on the beach. So
Yes. And the venue is truly 2 blocks from the beach. Like, you walk out the door, turn left, and in 2 blocks, you are in the sand.
yeah,
It's awesome.
And here's the thing. We want to make sure that anybody who wants to come can come. So tickets are literally $25 for a couple.
Yeah.
So that's $12.50 a piece, which is just helps us cover the cost of running the event. You can get your tickets at familymeeting.org/shop, and you'll see the relationship refresh there. Reserve your tickets today.
You know, one person's ticket is less than a Chick-fil-A meal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you think about that. That's a good value, guys, okay? And if you need lodging and everything, you can contact us. We can help you get set up with that as
Yeah,
well.
because
And
two
where
of
to
you
go.
go to Chick-fil-A, and it's great food, but 2 of you go, you're spending 30 plus.
Yeah. I'm thinking about milkshakes now. I love their cookies and cream milkshake.
Well, I know what we're doing after this episode's over.
We can't. I'm being healthy right now.
Lame.
I know. Okay. Should we get into this episode?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's talk about parenting regrets. Woohoo! Sounds so fun, right? Listen, the purpose of this episode is not to bring up shame and guilt over past regrets that we have or that you may have, okay?
Well, I think if anything, it's to help all of you feel better as parents. Because when you hear some of the regrets somebody else has, you're like, oh, you know what? At least I didn't do that. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Or, hey, at least I'm not the only one
Who did that.
So
Yeah, for sure.
hopefully you'll feel better about yourself after this is over.
Absolutely. And listen, we all make mistakes, okay?
Speak for yourself.
You do, I do. And listen, we are still parenting. You're still parenting, most likely, whether you have adult children, little children, teenage children, whatever. You're not done making mistakes either. You're still creating regrets right now, most likely. It's part of life, okay? Because we try to do a great job. We all want to be great parents. We all care so much about our kids. We love the Lord. We want to honor him. And yet we are flawed human creatures, okay? And we are not perfect. Nobody is, babe. Nobody's perfect. But what is the purpose then of this episode? The purpose is to make you feel like, hey, you're not alone in your regrets. We all have them. And then the other purpose is to maybe help you learn from other parenting regrets that other parents have,
totally.
right? So like if I say, this is my biggest parenting regret, maybe I can give you a little warning so that you don't do that yourself.
Well, and it is way better to learn from somebody else's mistakes than have to learn from our own.
Absolutely. Yes. But I also want to share this verse with you as an encouragement before we dig into parenting regrets. And that is Romans 8:1. This is a very comforting verse. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Okay. So if you're feeling regrets over past actions, this verse offers you the assurance that there's no condemnation in Christ. Okay. Regret doesn't have to define who you are once you have turned to him and he has become your savior. You've entered that relationship with him. You don't have to have condemnation. You don't have to be defined by your regrets or mistakes.
Well, and it also reminds me of the verse in John chapter number 3 that tells us that Jesus didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him would be saved.
Yes.
And so, we're quick to condemn other people. And Jesus didn't come to do that, and I don't think he sent you or I here to do that either. But not just condemn other people. It's easy for us to look at other parents and say, how could they do that, or how could they let that happen, or whatever. But some of us, that's not really the issue or the struggle. Some of us, the greatest condemnation is what we give ourselves.
Yep, exactly.
And so you are going to make mistakes. You have made mistakes as a parent. You do have regrets. I have regrets. And we've got to learn to forgive ourselves and let those things go and learn on and grow from it.
That's right. That's right. So the purpose of this episode is not to shame you, to bring up your guilt, or to make you feel bad. All right. We want to say, hey, we're here with you. We all have regrets, and maybe you can learn from someone else.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
Before we bring up other people sharing their regrets, I'll just jump out and take the lead right away.
Okay.
I'll often do this in like my men's group or connection group as I'm leading. If it's a tough question or topic or awkward, then I'll jump out first, kind of break the ice. So let me do that for all of you who are listening today. And here it is. My biggest parenting regret is being too good of a parent.
Oh, come on.
Because I've not really had the opportunity to learn or grow from mistakes.
No, stop it. We are choking.
So tough to bear.
Okay.
You know?
Listen, this is like when you go to a job interview and you're like, my biggest flaw is that I care too much.
I work too hard.
I work too hard and I'm too committed to the company. Listen. We want authenticity. We want realism. And if you won't share a parenting regret, I'll share something you should regret.
I'm regretting this conversation already. I've got a couple things. So one of them has to do with a specific moment in time. And I think I've shared this on the podcast before, but I know we've got new listeners who haven't heard this, and this will make you feel good as a parent that at least you didn't do that to your kids. So this was when the girls were very young, and they were toddlers, and they were complaining about having bug bites. And
I hate this one.
I know. It is, but as far as parenting moments, it's literally my biggest regret.
It's just burned in our memory.
And so
2013,
we would put bug bites on, and we check with the doctor.
Yeah, we went to the doctor.
Doctor was like, "Oh, it's jigger bites.
Jiggers. Spraying them with bug spray.
Just put them on bug spray when they go outside, and it'll be fine." So we did that, and they just kept getting bit. And one night we went in to check on them, and literally...
No, one of the kids wet the bed.
Oh, that's right.
So we had...
That's why we had to check on them.
We went in there, and we had to, like, strip the sheets and deal with
so
that.
Get them out of that bed, and we start stripping the sheets, and there are literally thousands and thousands of bed bugs in their mattress and on their mattress and crawling over the place. It was... my skin is still crawling right now just talking about it and picturing it in my mind. And it is absolutely the worst I've ever felt as a parent. Like, I've said things I shouldn't to my kids. I've done things that I shouldn't as a parent, reacted in ways that I shouldn't. But I've never felt worse in that moment when I was like knowing I had allowed my kids to sleep in that environment for who knows how long. So
the regret is not digging into it more and researching it, maybe? What's the exact regret, would you say?
I don't know, just not being proactive enough, I guess. We believed, and this is what we do as parents, right? So even those of you who are sharing some of your regrets with us, we do what we think is the right thing at the right time with our kids in the moment. And sometimes it's not the right thing at the right time in that moment. And we can kind of regret that. I know that I shouldn't probably regret that because we tried. Like, we talked to the doctor. We were doing what we were told to do. We just didn't know that was the problem.
We'd never come in contact with that bug ever, so we had no frame of reference.
Yeah. So that's the biggest moment.
Yeah.
But I would say one of my biggest parenting regrets is just not understanding my own personality sooner and how that affects the people around me.
That's good.
So I am a type A personality, very focused, very driven, very dominant. If you're familiar with the DISC or the DISA, however you want to say it. And so that understanding that now, I know the weaknesses that are involved and I can try to counteract that. But even now with my own kids, sometimes I find myself, not necessarily connecting with them like I should, and just maybe expecting a little too much out of them at times. So that's one of the regrets I have also.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go next before we turn the light on everyone else. Might as well turn the light on ourselves, right? So my biggest parenting regret, I think, overall, is being too uptight in general.
No.
Like, overall, yeah. Our poor children. You being dominant and me being uptight. What a fun childhood they had.
Yeah.
No, I am such an uptight person in general. Like, I'm a laugher and I'm bubbly and stuff, but I'm so uptight about everything. Cleaning, like when I look back, I think about like how obsessive I was about having the house clean to a certain standard. Homeschooling, what I expected of them and what I wanted our homeschooling to look like, housework in general, the way that they looked, like hair, baths, clothes, shoes, everything. I was just uptight about everything. And I ran myself ragged trying to keep up with everything. Now, on the other hand, like it's funny because as I say it, the other part of my brain is like, yeah, but the house was clean.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. So it is kind of like it's a catch-22, trying to find that balance of like keeping things clean, but also enjoying life with your children.
I will say you've grown because like we're sitting here recording this podcast episode. I can look over on the love seat, see a blanket that's just crumpled up on the love seat, not folded, not put away, not laying exactly the right way.
Yep.
Is that bothering you?
Yes, and Catherine's book and pencil left on the coffee table.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a conversation with her about that. But I'm trying not to be too uptight.
Not going to be too uptight about it, but keep your book and pencil off of the table.
Yeah, and I don't know whose sweatshirt that is, but is that yours?
It is not mine.
Okay.
I did not bring my sweatshirt to the gym today.
I know whose that is, but I'm not going to say her name again. Whoops.
Catherine.
JK, everybody. Listen, it is tough not to be too uptight, and I am still obviously working on it. I'm working at it. I can see where I've like let loose a little bit on things, but I wish I wouldn't have been so uptight, even with the kids' like behavior.
Well, and you think about that, like the thought runs through your mind about those certain things, but instead of just saying it now, you will often let certain things just go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a lot of growth.
Thank you. I'm trying.
I'm proud of you.
I'll take it. Thanks.
By the time the kids are all moved out, we may have this thing figured out.
Oh, that'd be great. Of course, yeah, then they're gone.
Just in time for grandkids, and all the rules are out the window now.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But that's the thing. No matter who we are, we all have our issues that we're dealing with and mistakes that we make. So we want to share with you what our friends in the Family Meeting Community Facebook group had to say was their biggest parenting regrets. So we're not going to share their names, but just going to share their answers. If you want to see their names, you got to join the group, and you'll be able to look and see the comments that they made. So here was the first one, and this was kind of very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And this person said, and I don't have their name in front of me, so I don't even know who it is.
You don't even know if it's male or female.
Allowing us to stay in harmful circumstances and not changing them sooner to create a healthy, not toxic pace of life and environment that allows our family, marriage, and children to be nurtured and healthy. And, that's hindsight's 20/20, right?
Right.
So it's easier to look back and to say, man, I wish I had done that sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had gotten out of that situation sooner. And obviously, I don't know the situation that they're talking about. And like I said, I don't know who this person is. It sounds maybe like a certain religious upbringing or church that we're involved in. Maybe I could be totally off base, but that's, that is my experience from the past is situations like that. And for a lot of us, it's like, this is just the way I grew up. This is just the way things are, right?
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily recognize that it is unhealthy until you can get to a healthy place. And then you're like, whoa, that was way worse than I thought it was. Like, that was way more toxic and unhealthy and abusive than I thought it was. Because we're just living our life. It's what we know. And so I understand what you're saying. I understand your answer and the mindset and how you can look back and kind of regret that. But here's what I want to say to you now is, hey, you did make the change.
Right.
Because it says, wish we would have done it sooner. So you did make the change. You worked to get to a healthier place, a healthier pace, and a healthier environment so that you can nurture your family, your marriage relationship with your kids, and be healthy. So I applaud you. Well done.
Right. Absolutely.
Because a lot of people never go through the work to make the change, because change is hard.
The easy thing is to stay in it, to
Totally.
be honest.
Yeah.
That's the easy thing.
And change is scary. So moving away from whatever that situation environment was to a different situation environment takes a lot of courage, a lot of faith, a lot of work. So I understand why you would have regrets about that, but you've got to learn to kind of let that go, because you did the right thing.
Yep. And the future is bright. Okay. The second one that was listed here, I thought was so beautiful because this person got real. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you don't want to share with anyone ever. And so I was really proud of them for being so real with us. Here's what they said. Not being patient enough. My temper has been a hard thing to wrestle with. I'm better than I was, but I see the hurt it has left behind. Wow, that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really tough. And, a temper, that anger, it's coming from somewhere. So maybe this is a regret that you have, or maybe you realize like this is the path I'm headed down. My encouragement to you would be to find where the anger is coming from. What's the source of it? Because a lot of times it's something from like childhood that's still there undealt with. And if you have an anger issue that just, you cannot get the anger to go away, I really recommend you finding counseling and dig into that and figure out why am I not patient? Why is my temper out of control? Why am I rageful all the time? Like, what is this about? Because the truth is, it does leave behind hurt. The things that we say, the things that we do, the way we react, it leaves a lasting impression on our children. And so figuring this out is going to be beneficial for you and for your kids. And it sounds like this person is really working on it and has improved, and they're getting better, which is awesome.
Well, and this is a big struggle for me anyway. Also, for a couple things. I've already talked about my personality, my temperament, like that. I have that is typically hot-tempered. And then, the kind of the background that I grew up in, there was a lot of anger and that kind of thing in the home a lot of times. And so, and then, you just have this combination that comes together, and it's been a struggle for me. I still, talk about regrets and how you've reacted, the way I reacted when Violet was small and knocked over my laptop, and the way that I yelled at her and spoke to her, and if I'm not careful, I can still fall back into that. Like, I've learned and I've grown a lot. One of the best things I think you can say is I'm not as bad as I used to be. Mm-hmm. But I still have to watch out for it.
Yeah, I think if you don't constantly battle it and fight that you slip back into that pretty easily. Not you personally, but a person. Like, just going back into whatever the habit or the behavior is, it's just so easy to slip back into it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like 2 months down the road and you're like, oh man, I've just gone right back to it. So just always being aware of that and always working towards, fighting the urge to have that temper, or figuring out why is this anger here?
Yeah. So
dealing with the real reason behind the anger.
That's their regret.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one that was shared, and that is not making enough time for just the wife and I.
It's good.
So, and this person is not the only person to do this. We can tend to put all our focus, all our energy into the kids. Like, they are a very important part of our life. They shouldn't be the most important part of our life. Obviously, as Christians, followers of Jesus, we believe our relationship with him should come first. After that, we believe the marriage relationship is the next most important, followed by our relationship with our kids. And so when we get those priorities out of balance, that can cause a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And so our spouse often can feel neglected when we make our kids the primary relationship in our lives and the primary importance. And you can look back over time and be able to see how your relationship with your spouse has struggled, or you become distant because of that. Mm-hmm. The good news is that as soon as you start to recognize it, you can work to counteract that and work and develop. And it's one of the reasons why we focus so heavily on these marriage events.
Right.
And spend the time and the energy for them is because we understand how important that marriage relationship is, and that you've got to constantly be working on it, constantly growing. And Lysandra and I are always working and growing. Now, we have a lot of conversations about our own relationship as we prepare for each of these events. But we've also are making plans to go to events ourselves that we're not speaking at, where it's just we're there to learn and listen and grow and work on our own marriage. Mm-hmm. And it's the reason why we spend time away with each other. So we were talking to our YouTube watchers before we started this episode that, hey, Valentine's Day is coming up. And so, guys, you have time to do something special for your wife. And I've surprised Lysandra. She doesn't know what we're doing yet. I just literally texted her and was like, hey, reserve February 12th, 13th, and 14th on your calendar. Don't put anything on your calendar. I will text you with more information as you need. And we will often go away together, just the two of us, because that relationship is so important to us. We need to make sure, because eventually the kids are moving and moving out.
It's already happening. Like, yeah. And not just necessarily like moving out of the house, but they're moving into their own lives. They're still here, but they're moving into their own lives, and our lives can't be all about the kids. And I do get how this is hard, because like most people, you so badly want a baby. I just want a baby. I want a baby. And that baby is born, and you fall in love with that baby. Yeah. Like you really, truly fall in love with that baby. And so it is so hard to fight the urge to just make everything about the baby or the babies. And all of a sudden, and it's hard. It's hard to go away, because who's going to be the babysitter? They won't take a bottle from anybody but mom or dad, or, all the different reasons. There's a million excuses as to why you can't. And there might be very legitimate, but seriously, do whatever it takes to invest in your marriage, because you don't want to have this regret one day.
Well, and even if it's just, we've talked about this before, even if it's just protecting bedtime.
Yes.
Like, okay, and this is one reason I was pretty protective of the kids' bedtime, was that way Lysandra and I would have time together. I mean, we had 4 little toddlers running around at once. You talk about a lot of focus, a lot of energy for these little kids. And there wasn't a lot of time during the day for just the two of us, if ever. Maybe at nap time we might catch a few minutes together and be able to sit down and have a conversation without the kids. But nighttime was our time, and so that was a lot of our date nights, was spending time after the kids went to bed, talking or watching a movie, or cooking up a frozen pizza and eating in bed afterwards. So
yeah.
Maybe that's what you have to do. Maybe you can't go out right now. Maybe you can't go away for a weekend because of the circumstances that you're in. Most of you can do that. It's whether or not you choose to. But for some circumstances, you can't. I understand that. So just do what you can.
All right. This one is very good too. And we have struggled with this our whole marriage, but marriage and parenting, both. And this is not doing or being consistent with family devotions. And there may be somebody who's listening who's like, what's family devotions? Because that's a term that's kind of in the church world, and maybe you're not in the church world. But the whole idea is having Bible time with your family. So time where you read the Bible, you pray, and maybe discuss something that you can learn from the Bible. And this has always been important to both Thomas and myself. And we've always tried. And we have often failed, but I think the key here is to not ever give up, like to keep trying and to keep trying to be more consistent with it. I think it kind of depends too on your family dynamic. It's a lot easier to be consistent with things like family devotions if your family is in a routine that's very rigid. So if both parents or one parent works 9 to 5, and it's always the same. They always come home at the same time. They always leave at the same time. It's, or if all the kids are in like a public school where they always go at the same time, they always come home at the same time. I think it's a lot easier to do family devotions. For one thing that we had kind of going against us with this is a crazy schedule all the time. With church work, you're on call 24/7, except for family days as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it's like you can work in the middle of the night. You can work at almost most nights. And it just was really difficult to find that time. Now, when they were really little, bedtime was strictly observed because, with little babies and toddlers, you cannot mess with bedtime. They have to get to sleep or you're going to have a terrible day the next day. So even if Thomas couldn't be there, I was able to have devotions with them literally every night when they were little. But the older they get, the harder that is because things change. They are not all home at the same time.
Well, and the seasons change also. So, like, we get to a point where, all right, we're getting a good rhythm with it, and then the season changes for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Then that routine that we've built up is kind of bumped out, and finding that next routine
Yeah.
can take a while.
That is a
And
great point.
when you stop doing something, whatever it is, it's hard to make time to pick it back up again, whether that's eating right or exercising or spending time in the Word, going to church, whatever it is. Once we're bumped out of that routine, it's hard to get back in. So you're not alone in this. Most
Right.
parents, most Christian parents feel the same way. And like Lysandra said, the best thing is just don't give up on it.
Yes.
When you think about it, do it. Don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or week
Yeah.
or whatever. Just get back to it.
Yeah,
So,
don't dwell on the days you missed. Dwell on the days that you did it, and then keep on trying.
And so that parenting regret of not doing or being consistent with family devotions kind of bumps into the next parenting regret that this person shared, and that was not raising my son with Bible knowledge. And of course, I don't know the circumstances here as well. And I would say that, I wish my kids knew more. I think they know more than I did at their age, which is good. But just, hey, you have an issue here now, you can work on it. So you recognized it. And even if your son is grown, like I don't know the age of this person, I don't even know who it is, you could still have that spiritual influence in their
Yes.
life wherever they are. But, we talk about the importance of, hey, going to church as a family, and they have an opportunity to hear and learn and grow in the Word there. Getting involved in youth group is great. So for you parents that have teens, make sure they're there at youth group. Like we don't make it optional for our kids to go to youth group. When they can go, they go. Like they can't just choose to go to a friend's house instead of go to a youth group. There's very few exceptions of why they're not there. One being volleyball, because of the night of the week, they've made a commitment to be on that team for that certain amount of time. And if they don't have a game, then they're there. So, but I think sometimes we can go to the opposite extreme, where we just expect the church, the youth pastor, whatever, or Sunday school teacher or whatever, their Bible teacher, to be the one to teach them all the Bible stuff, when that really, as a parent, that's my responsibility. That's your responsibility to make sure your kids know the Word. So just, hey, do what you can.
And the best thing too is to be the example, right? So you be in the Word of God, show them that you're in the Word of God. You bring up spiritual conversations. This is one way to have that spiritual influence, is do it yourself, and then it'll pass on.
Well, and some parents are kind of afraid to direct their kids to learn more about the Bible because they don't really know the Bible themselves. And this is something I always encourage people to do, is to say, I don't know. Like, that's a great question. I don't know. Your kid's going to come to you and ask some questions. And it's funny, every once in a while, a dad will reach out to me and say, hey, my kid asked me this question. I have no idea what I should tell him. And I love that, because they're not afraid of hard questions, and they're not afraid of saying, I don't know, let me check and see. And so don't let fear of what they might ask keep you from encouraging them in their own personal study.
All right, this next one, is very honest, very beautiful. This parent says, I didn't hug her enough. So they feel like, looking back over the years, and it sounds like maybe this is a child who's out of the house now, but I'm not sure. I didn't hug her enough. It's so interesting to hear people's perspective and the things that they realize now would have been so important in those critical parenting years. But that physical touch and, being there, put your arm around your child, give them that hug. If you have to make it awkward, make it awkward. Sometimes my girls will hug and I'm just like, nope, I'm not letting go yet, and we just have a long hug. Now, fathers and daughters, this can be a little, you need to be careful here. I think that this was maybe by a mom, but fathers need to hug their daughters. I agree with that. Like, our kids love to get a hug from daddy, but if they are uncomfortable with it, then don't force that on them, is my encouragement to you.
Yeah.
And maybe your daughters are becoming teenagers. Maybe it's time to turn to a side hug or whatever you need to do to make them feel more comfortable. But there is something to a hug. There's something about that just alleviates pain. I know for me, like, when I'm all upset, he'll just hold me and hug me. And it is such a relief. I just feel like a release of emotion. I feel comforted, and it's great. So I think this is a good one to share with people.
Well, and we've always been a family that is very verbally affectionate and physically affectionate, and especially when the girls were young, like, part of the bedtime routine was, hugs. That was part of it.
Yep.
And so we'd hug each other goodnight and everything else. Each of our daughters have gone through a awkward phase where it was like they don't really want to hug dad. Mm-hmm. And that was once Lysandra had the sex talk with him. And so
yeah, that'll ruin a kid.
they would come back into the house after the conversation and see me, and you could just tell, like, okay, everything's different now.
They're like, you're disgusting.
Yeah. So have been periods for all four of them where it was, you could tell, like, they're feeling awkward about it now. Mm-hmm. And so as a dad of daughters, I just do my best to be respectful and thoughtful of them. We've kind of tried to teach them all along that they don't have to give physical affection to anybody. Mm-hmm. That they don't owe anybody physical affection for a lot of different reasons. And so if they're uncomfortable hugging somebody, then we encourage them not to do it. And so being thoughtful and mindful of that while they're in a stage of our relationship where it's awkward in that moment, then I respect that. And I don't take it personally. And we're pretty much past that. All my kids, all my daughters hug me and everything else. When they're upset, when they're crying, I will wrap them up in a big, tight hug and just hold them until they're done crying and they feel better.
Yep.
So being thoughtful in that. And if you're a family if you've grown up in a family that wasn't physically affectionate, it can be a little weird, a little awkward. If you've been raising your kids and you've not been physically affectionate, it can be an awkward thing to work through.
Yeah. Like, why are you hugging me, Mom?
Yeah. So, but just encourage you to work on it, work through it.
Yeah. And when you're doing that, and they're like, why are you trying to hug me? This is weird. Just be like, I know this is weird, but I feel like I didn't hug you enough. And so I want to hug. I want to hug you. And just be honest about it, be honest about why. Okay. So, this next part is really cool because this is where we see parents in the family meeting community coming together.
Yeah. So we had an interesting interaction on the post, and it's a way that we can support and encourage each other. So this next parent regret, one parent shared and other parents had some encouraging things to say. And so I'm going to give the parenting regret and what they talked about, and then Lysandra is going to kind of give some responses to that. And so here's the parenting regret. Forcing my child to go to church only because she hates church and she won't go now. And I find this is interesting because we literally just talked about my kids don't have a choice in certain things. Church is one of the things that our daughters don't have a choice of. Like, if you live in my house, you're going to go to church. So here's some of the encouragement and the responses that were given.
And let me say this before we dig into that. It's okay to disagree. And we welcome you to disagree with us and the things that we say. We welcome you to disagree with maybe some things that other people say, or even material we present to you from a book. It's okay to disagree. We're never okay with anyone, battering one another or name calling or anything, any of those kinds of responses to disagreeing. But the way that these parents disagreed was so beautiful, and we want to shine the light on that. And also, we want you to understand, like, you have to do what you believe is right with your kids before God. And we always tell you that, like, pray about it, be in the Word, listen to the Holy Spirit, and do what is right before God between you and Him.
And I think another thing to make sure of is to make sure you're going to church to a church that is healthy.
Yes.
Because if you force your kids to go to a church that is unhealthy and is spiritually abusive, that is going to do a lot of hurt. It is going to do a lot of damage. Mm-hmm. And the second thing that I would kind of say before we get to these responses is, if you're going to force your kids to go to church, make sure your home life and your church life match up.
Amen.
You want to make sure that you're being the exact same person, obviously appropriate for the setting. There's jokes and conversations and subject matters that I talk about in our home that I don't talk about at church because it's not appropriate. But I am the same person at church that I am at home. And so if your home life and what you show people at church doesn't match up, that could be another reason that your kids won't really like it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the first response, and I find it really beautiful because this person shares their experience as well. So the first parent said, forcing my child to go to church only because she hates church and won't go now. The response is, really sad face. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. If I can encourage you at all, my parents forced me to go to church. As soon as I turned 18, I moved out and became a CEO Christian. I have not heard this. Have you?
I have, yeah.
It's cute. Yeah. Christmas and Easter only. CEO Christian. Christmas and Easter only. I made a lot, all caps, of bad decisions in the span of 14 years. So during those 14 years, that parent probably had some doubts, like, should I have made her go to church? Should I have done this? Yeah. And then this is beautiful. She says, but God. My relationship with God became very important to me around 32 years old. I no longer look down on my parents for forcing me to go to church. I am grateful and thankful for their obedience to God, and know that if they hadn't raised me in that truth, who knows where my life would be now. So her perspective comes from a child who was forced to go to church and who, yes, hated and resented her parents for it, and yet, came back, and she's thankful that her parents did that. So, everybody's experience is different, and we understand that. But I love the way that this person encourages the parent, not just by disagreeing, but disagreeing and explaining themselves really well and in a kind way.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a Crowder song. We just went to see Toby Mac, and Crowder was there as well. And he sings this song, talks about somebody prayed. And he talks about, hey, when I see mountains moved, I can tell somebody prayed. And that there's never a life too gone, nobody that can't be reached, a life that can't be changed. We just got to keep on praying. And, you look at this life, and I think about the story that this person has told. And I think about their parents and how many nights they spent crying and praying for
14 years
for their
is a long
child.
time.
Yeah, it's a long time, but they just kept on. I have to believe they kept on praying, and so and that kind of leads into what the next parent had to say in the response to this was, keep praying. God will leave the 99 to bring back the one! Exclamation point.
Beautiful.
And I love that because, yes, right now your daughter hates church, doesn't want to go. But here's the thing: you never know what's going to happen in their life to grab their attention and to turn them back around to a right relationship with God. And so, great advice from this parent, and a great reminder that we serve the God who goes and searches after the one that's wandered away.
Very true. All right. And then lastly, one parent said, some churches drive young people away from God. Maybe it wasn't that you forced her, that drove her away, but it was the church itself. And I think that is a great point of view, because it's like that parent said, I think towards the beginning, that they wish that they would have gotten their child out of a situation sooner.
Yeah.
And if that was a religious situation or a religious organization, if it is unhealthy, you need to get out of that. And maybe that was what was happening. Of course, we don't know. But I think that there's an encouragement there. The thing is, like, it might not have been you. It may have been the church or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But maybe you're going through a period right now of a prodigal child. And for those of you who are not familiar with that term, the idea is a child who has turned their back on God and said, like, I don't want anything to do with God, church, Bible, prayer, any of that. I'm done with it. And that can be heartbreaking for a parent who knows, like, there is such joy and blessing in serving God and following him. But the thing that we want to encourage you with is to keep believing and keep praying. But not only that, don't be afraid to self-examine. Like, having a prodigal child doesn't mean that you messed up. Okay, that's not what that means. Adam and Eve, they had some really messed up children, right? And there was not a whole lot of otherworldly influences or anything like that. Like, it just, from the beginning of time, there's been children who went astray, okay? But maybe you do need to self-examine and see, is there something that I need to take ownership for from the past? Maybe I did have anger issues. Maybe I wasn't the same person at home as I was at church. Maybe I didn't live out the things I pretended to live out at church, or I wasn't in the word myself. I wasn't following the way I should have been following at that time. It's okay to look back and see those things. It's not about living in the past or having shame, but having the courage to speak that to your child, even if they're an adult and they've been away from the Lord for a long time. I think that would do a lot in healing some of that. If you had the courage to say, hey, I made some mistakes when you were growing up. I have some regrets. I wish I would have been in the Word of God. I wish I would have been more like the person I presented at church when we were at home, or whatever it is. But don't be afraid to take ownership of that, no matter how old your child is. That may break down some walls and give you an opportunity to influence them still to this day.
And that leads us to the family meeting for this week. And that is to do exactly just that. Sit down with your kids and share with them your biggest parenting regret or regrets. You got multiple things you need to talk about, multiple things that you need to confess and apologize for. Like, if you've never talked to your kids about your biggest regret and confessed it and sought to make it right and ask for forgiveness, this is a great time to do that. And also talk about the changes. Like, I know that I've struggled with my temper, and I've been a little short and angry with you at times. And so this is the plan that I'm taking and making to try to change that behavior. I'm going to counseling. I'm memorizing verses on anger and patience and all of those things so that you can continue to develop that relationship with your kids. So be a difficult conversation, I think, but a very good conversation to have.
Thanks for joining us today, friends. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss an idea that isn't very popular in our world today. And that idea is wait for it and work for it. We're looking at this philosophy in terms of your marriage and finances, so this might be tough.
All right.
I'm going to make you wait for it and work for it. This is not an intimacy bedroom
I
talk,
was
by
gonna
the
say,
way.
all
It
right,
kind of sounds like it, though, doesn't it?
I'll do both.
Wait
Yeah.
for it and work for it. That's not what we're talking about, guys. Okay, we're talking about marriage and finances next week.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks for watching, you guys. Maybe you didn't have time or didn't know about this question that we posed on Family Meeting Community, but you'd like to share your parenting regret with us, or maybe what you've learned through the regrets that you have. We'd love to hear from you. It can help other parents. It can help us. We need each other.
And it was a great conversation to have. We'd love to have that conversation with you in the comments section as well. And maybe somebody has the word of encouragement and hope and help that exactly you need, or you have it for them. So feel free to share those things.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.